Hi everyone, welcome back to Design Cove. I'm very happy to share with you a new design course, and this time is going to be different because I'm going to introduce each week a new design. So it's a course about plenty new design, and today we're going to start with the size menu. I'm going to show you different style and useful tips including what's work and what doesn't, how to choose the right font, how to improve visual hierarchy using primary, secondary, and tertiary color, and tip for better spacing and padding for the overall structure. So let's get started. Let's start with typography, which is the most important part of any menu. Typography, it's all about the text in your design, and it plays a huge role in making your menu clean and easy to use. If the text is not readable, it doesn't matter how great the rest of the design look because users will struggle to navigate. Alright, before we start designing this side menu, we need to create a frame to work within. Press on F, then select the Instagram post format preset or any format that works for you. This will give us the spaces we need to design everything properly. So, how do we get typography right? Let's break it down into 3 simple steps. The first thing you need is a font that is easy to read and match the style of your design. For a clean, modern look, a sans-serif font like Enter works really well. Sans-serif fonts are simple and free of extra detail, which make them feel light, approachable, and perfect for design. If you are not familiar with typography basic, let me quickly explain the difference between sans-serif and serif. A serif font like Times New Roman has small decorative line at the end of the letter. So this detail makes serif font feel more traditional and formal. On the other end, sans-serif font don't have those extra line, and the word sans actually mean without. So sans-serif fonts are clean and simple. That's why they are commonly used in app and website. For my design, I use Enter, but you don't have to stick to it. There are plenty of great alternatives depending on the platform or style you are designing for. For example, Roboto is a great choice if you're designing for Android. Open Sans and Lato are excellent for clean, professional look. Popping and Montserrat work well if you want a more geometric, modern vibe. Sword Sans Pro and Nudito, Manrobe, and SF Pro are also fantastic options for readability and style. And of course, Helvetica is a timeless classic for any minimal design. And remember, the font you choose sets the tone of your entire design. Alright, let's create the first text. Press on T and type filter. And the second step is to set the size and weight, which are 2 key factors in creating a clear visual hierarchy. Sorry, I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, but you know what I mean. Okay, now let's duplicate the text and type software. Okay, I'm gonna duplicate again, and this time change the text to Figma. Visual hierarchy is important because it helps users quickly identify what is most important in your side menu and understand how the information is organized. We're going to start by using bigger, bold text for the title and section title. This make them stand out and grab attention so user can quickly see the structure of the menu. And for the title, the text should be between 18 and 24, and the text should be bold or medium weight. And for the section title, use a size of 18 to 20. For the individual menu item, use smaller regular weight text around 14 to 16. It should be clear and easy to read. The last step for typography is spacing. And line height or line spacing is the vertical space between line of text. A good rule is to use the line spacing that is slightly larger than your font size. The general rule is to set the line height to 1.3 times to 1.5 times the font size depending on the context. Let's take the body, which is 16. Your line spacing should be around 20-24. For a side menu, it's generally better to use 1.3 times line height to keep the design compact and visually neat. Now let's set the letter spacing, which is the space between letters. It controls how close or far apart the letters appear from each other. For the title, we're going to set the letter spacing to 2%. This adds a little extra space to make the bold text feel more balanced and easier to read. And for the headline and body text, we're going to set the letter spacing to the default value, which is 0. Okay, so let's go over some do and don't. So let's start with the don't. Don't use serif font. So you can see that the text is more clean without the extra line. Don't make all the text the same size. Don't use tight line spacing, and don't overdo letter spacing. And also don't mix too much many font. Now let's go over the do. So use Sans-Serif font for a clean and modern design. Use proper size and weight. Don't forget. Larger and bold for title and section title, and smaller and regular weight for menu item to create a clean hierarchy. Adjust the line spacing to 1.3 times. Add subtle letter spacing for titles such as 2% to make bold text feel more balanced. And keep all spacing consistent across your design. Icons are a great way to make your design clearer and more interesting. They help show idea or action quickly, which make your interface easier to use. Once space is limited, icons can save room and make things look neat. Icons are not just for decoration. They help users understand options faster and support the text. In this section, we're going to integrate icon with text and learn where to find icon resources and understand how to align icon and text properly. And we will also see the difference between with and without icon for a side menu. You can find icons easily in the Figma community. There is no need to download anything from other websites, and Figma has many libraries and plugins. And I use icons from the design code UI kit, which you can also find it in the Figma community. However, not all the icons are available for free, so don't worry. I will prepare everything in my Figma file for you, so you will have access to the icon and logo I use. Okay, so let's go back to where we left off. So I update my Figma version to the new UI 3. I feel like I was too comfortable with the old version, so I decided to get more familiar with the new UI. You can still use the old version if you prefer. Okay, now the toolbar is at the bottom. So once you have activated the library for your icon, just go to the asset and type the name of the icon that you want. Let's start with the icon for software. Also, we're going to add a plus icon because this is the title section and we want to make it expandable so user can open and close it. Okay, and for Figma, we're going to use logo, and then you can go to the component property and change to Figma logo instead. The icon is from design code UI kit, so we need to change the color variable to text primary instead. We are going to create the layout using auto layout because auto layout make everything more flexible and responsive. So with auto layout, we can easily adjust spacing, alignment, and size, which save time and keep the design consistently. So I always design with auto layout. Okay, so select the icon and the text, and we're gonna add a container. So for activate auto layout is Shift plus A, and set the spacing between the text and icon to 8, and then select the new container and the plus icon. It again Shift plus A to add another layout. Okay, let's rename the layer. Now let's add padding on this side. For horizontal padding, I recommend set it between 16 and 24. For vertical padding, I recommend between 8 or 16. So I will go with 8. It's important to set your rule for spacing and padding to maintain consistency in your design. And personally, I love to follow the 4-grid rule, but some designers prefer using increment of 10. I will talk about this and more in detail in the next section of layout. And for now, to make the layout responsive, set the gap to auto. This means the spacing between elements will adjust automatically based on the available space. We're going to create a checkbox. First, search for a check icon. Then we're going to resize the icon frame to 16 by 16. And we're going to place it inside a container using auto layout. And don't make it too big. So let's say 20 by 20. And we're not going to fill the container. We're just going to use a sample stroke for the outline of the box. And we're gonna round the corner slightly. We're gonna do the same like we did for the section title container. First, select the logo and the text, put it in a container. So we're gonna group it together. Then select the new container with the checkbox together and set the same padding for vertical and horizontal, and for the spacing between them is going to be auto. So now let's work on the title layout. First, place it inside a container. Use the same padding, so 16 for horizontal and 8 for vertical. It's very important to align the content to the left to keep everything neat and consistent. And we're going to add count badge. So start by typing 2 using the size of 10 and set the text box to auto width so it adjusts the size of the text. And next, add a container around the text and fix it to 20 by 20. And finally, make sure to align the content in the center and add a stroke and round the corner. For the filter, I'm going to add a icon that let the user know that they can collapse. I recommend using a close button for filter and a collapse icon for size menu. We're going to create a component to make it easier to design side menu later, so allowing us to reuse it in just a favor click instead of recreating it each time. To finish this section, let's compare size menu with icon and without icon. There are many ways to design a side menu. You can see that with icon, it makes the menu more interesting and easier to understand. They help users quickly see what each category means without reading too much. The menu without icon looks simpler and cleaner. They work well when the focus is on the text or when you want a minimalist design. This style is good for smaller menu or when clarity is more important than visual. So choosing the right one depends on what you want for your design and the experience you want to give user. So now that we have created the layout for the sides menu, it's time to make things more practical by turning it into reusable components. And components are useful because they help us maintain consistency, save time, and make updates easily across multiple instances. Let's start with the menu item. The component feature is now located in the top right corner of the property panel. So now we're gonna add the first property. Select the checkbox. I want to be able to hide or show the checkbox. So now the property is in the appearance. So you will see the variable icon. Click on it and then click on the plus icon. And you will have option to property or variable. So stay with property and rename it to show checkbox. We're gonna do the same thing for the logo. Click the logo, go to appearance. Okay. Let's add a property for the text. Go to the text property and hover over the text and you will see the variable icon appear. I was looking for it and yeah, finally found it. So we're gonna keep the name to text. Now we're going to create variant for state and option. Let's take the checkbox. So we're gonna create variant for the state, one for the select with the check icon, and the other is going to be the unselected without the icon. And it's very useful if you want to create interactive component for your prototype. So instead of clicking on create component, it's going to be component set. Then replace it inside the menu item component. And now we're gonna do the same thing for the section title, but this time I'm gonna let you do it by yourself, and I will be back with you for the title layout. And don't forget that you can always pause and replay the video once you are done. Alright, let's move to the title container, which is the header of the side menu. I want it to be compatible with the side menu and the filter at the same time without having to create multiple versions. So I need an avatar to complete my component. And we're going to add property to it to be able to hide or show the avatar. Do the same thing for the text, add the text property. And also for the count amount, we're gonna add the boolean property. And for the text also, so we can be able to change the number. And of course, we're going to do the same thing for the icon, add the boolean property. Okay, select the component. Now we're going to take things a step further by creating nested instance for the logo and icon. This will allow us to swap out icon and logo directly in the component property. Select back the menu item container, and we want to add a state for it. For hover and select it, so just add 2 more variants and just rename it properly. Okay, alors let's click on the component and we're gonna add nested instance for this. A nest instance is simply an instance of another component placed inside a parent component. And we're gonna add color in the next section. It's time to style the over and selected state. These states are important for creating a smooth and intuitive user experience, as they provide visual feedback to users when they interact with interface. There are so many ways to style this state depending on your design goal and the type of element. For other state, use subtle change like a slightly darker or lighter background, or change the text color, or adding a underline to show interactivity. I use a gradient that fades on the left side, and this gradient creates a softer transition, allowing me to add a line later to make the element stand out more. So I prepare all my color, so I only take the color from my library. It's not color style but variable, and it's very efficient. I really like to use variable for my color because it's easy to switch into light and dark mode. So I will cover this topic in another design episode. For selected state, make the change more obvious, such as using a bold background color, a border, a outline, a stronger text color to indicate the item is activated. Okay, so keep it simple. Avoid overcomplicating over with excessive effect. A clean, clear design is more user-friendly. Now, let's talk about color for text and how they create a clear visual hierarchy in your design. Color play a vital role in guiding user attention and helping them quickly understand the difference of elements in your menu. So that's why we use a primary, secondary, and tertiary color for text to establish this hierarchy. The primary color is used for the most important information, the content that needs to grab the user attention right away, such as the title, the section title, and the selected item, and the menu. And the color that I use is white for dark mode and black for light mode. And the primary color should stand out clearly against the background. The secondary color is for supporting text. It's slightly less prominent than the primary color but still need to be readable. It's good for subtitle, description, or menu items that are not selected. For dark mode, I use white color at 70 opacity, or you can use a soft gray. And for light mode, I use a medium gray, which is black at 70% opacity. And the goal is to create contrast between primary and secondary text without overpowering the primary text. Also, for the icon, we're going to use a secondary color instead of the primary color. Icons are important for visual support, but they don't need to stand out too much. Using a secondary color keep the focus on the text or key element like title and selecting item. In this case, icons are mostly supporting element. They help user recognize section or action quickly, but they are not the main focus. Let's talk about the tertiary color, which is used for subtle elements that don't need too much attention. They provide visual support without overpowering the primary and secondary element. Okay, now let's jump into layout. So now it's time to decide which type of site menu would you like to create. So we have three options to choose from: the filter panel, the main navigation, or the user account. So in the preview design that I did the filter. After creating our component, it's time to make their variant and place them into the frame. I will add a random color for the frame for now. For the menu item, remove the checkbox. I only need the logo and text. Then duplicate the menu item maybe 4 more times and place them in another container using auto layout, and this will become one section. And separate the menu item in another container. Okay, we're going to quickly create the structure first, and then I will talk about the spacing and the padding. Honestly, you can place the layout however you prefer. Just make sure that for the close button, you only need the section title container and not the full section. If you realize that when you choose the open section, we have to change the plus icon to a minus icon. So we will do that later. Make sure to place the title at the top of the menu. It should stand out the most, and make sure to organize the content into sections, each with a section title and with the item. So now I have 4 sections and 2 of them are open, showing the item inside. And then when you're done, select everything and put it into a single container using auto layout. Okay, just fill the layout with the background color variable. Okay, depending on what you want to do, I'm going to start with the filter. I'm going to show you how to do the 2 other type. So let's start with the filter. So I don't need the avatar. Let's remove it. So we're gonna keep the text and the show amount and the icon. You can use this icon, or you can just simply use a close button. Now let's talk about padding and spacing and how we can keep it consistent throughout our design. Consistency and spacing is important because it makes the layout look clean, organized, and visual appealing. Okay, to maintain consistency, I recommend using a spacing rule such as the rule of 8 or rule of 10. This means all your padding, margin, and gap between elements should follow increment of 8 or 10 pixels. Okay, after deciding on your spacing rule, set the padding to 20 or 24. Alright, I'm going to expand my layout slightly, and to make the child container responsive, I will need to select each one individually and set them to fill container. Personally, I like to use the 8 pixel rule for my padding and spacing because it keeps everything consistent and easy to manage. And for this design, I'm setting the padding to 24. And for the spacing between sections, it's important to leave enough space to create a clear separation between them, between the section. If you prefer, you can have less spacing, but you have to add a separator line to visualize divide the section instead. So this approach keeps the design clean, organized, and easy to navigate. If you don't add a divider, set the spacing to 32 to create enough spacing between sections. However, if you add a separate line, which I prefer to add, you can reduce the spacing to 60 or 24 around divider for a cleaner and more compact layout. Okay, so this way the design stays balanced and visually organized. Okay, now the spacing between the menu, you want to set it to 8. You don't need too much space between them. And for section title and the menu, you don't need too much spacing because the same section, it's the same group. So you're gonna set the spacing to 60. You can also create a component set for the section title with and without the menu item. This is useful if you want to build the interactive prototype or easily switch between the open or closed section. Now let's add the segment control at the bottom of the filter panel. These controls include reset and done button. We won't build it from scratch because you can easily find it in the component of my Figma file and place it at the bottom and make sure to align to the center of the parent container. So you will notice the spacing between the content and the segment controls is very tight. So to fix this, I will create another container specifically for the top content. So this way the top content and the segment control can have different spacing, and set the spacing to auto. And then you can round the corner of the container and add a outline for it. So what you have left to do is to change the text and icon. If you want to make your design stand out from others, add a unique touch. For example, instead of keeping the section title larger and bold, I decided to make it smaller but uppercase. Sometimes designers break the rule. It can either work really well or not at all. But the key is ensuring the visual hierarchy remain clear and effective. Now that we have created the size menu, let's take it a step further by adding a vertical line. This line helps group everything together by section, so user can easily see which item belong to each section. To do this, we're going to modify the component. So you can see that I add a dot. This dot is going to be an indicator when user over or click on this specific item. It's a small detail, but it makes the menu feel more interactive and user-friendly, Press L to create a vertical line, and once the line is created, ensure that its angle is set to minus 90 degrees so it's aligned vertically. And next, place this line within the flow of your auto layout. You will notice that the line follows the flow, which is not what we'd want. To fix this, use the Ignore Auto Layout option. This allows you to position the element where you want and the layout without affecting the flow. So the line is not correctly placed because it's in front of the container. To fix this, move the layout behind the dot by placing at the top of the menu item container. Then we can fill the line with tertiary color, but we're going to fix it later. And to make this process easier and more efficient, especially if we plan to create a prototype, so we will create a component set for the open and close section. So the property is going to be state, is going to be selected and unselected. So one user click on the plus icon, they will see the menu list. Okay, you might notice the font style is not the same. I'm just going to reapply the same property to the open section. So we can just modify the text and the instance of this component. It's not going to affect the original component. Let's work again with the vertical line. We're going to add a fading effect to the end of the line so it doesn't appear a shape. To achieve this, we will use a linear gradient and add 2 additional stops. At the end of the line, use the quaternary color variable, which is white with 0 opacity, for a smooth fade. For the 2 other stops, use the tertiary color variable to maintain the primary color of the line. Okay, so let's check the design now to see how it's look. Oh, the line is barely visible, so let's go back to the component to check it out. Oh, there it is. I just visualized that the stroke opacity is set to 20%, so let's change it to 100 to make the line fully visible. Perfect. Now for the dot, let's change the color. For the selected menu, let's use a accent color. And for the all over, we can use a color lighter. That's the end of this video. For premium member, you will have access to the rest of this episode. So thank you so much for watching and see you in the next design episode. Bye!